The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Hello folks, welcome back to Hinckley and Bosworth for the final time this week. It's serious business now because the coat and hat have gone. It's starting to get a little bit warmer. This can be a good thing, it's stopped raining. Now then, we're starting this episode outside a farmyard called Rask Farm, and over there's a small industrial estate. We're going to be talking a little bit about air rifles to begin this one, and then we're going to walk around this huge village. There's loads to talk about in this one. This is NEWBOLD VERDON. NEWBOLD VERDON, new buildings belonging to Nicholas de Verdon. For the final parish in this initial Hinckley and Bosworth run, we come to the largest village we've met so far in this area. This is NEWBOLD VERDON, which includes the main village and two small hamlets called NEWBOLD Heath to the north and Brascote to the south. Originally an agricultural centre, NEWBOLD VERDON grew in size during the 1850s with the expansion of coal mining in the area. Now there's a familiar story. I won't bore you with the details of the how and why because we've seen it all before, but now that industry has ceased, it's left NEWBOLD VERDON as a pretty large commuter village, primarily serving Leicester and Hinckley. NEWBOLD VERDON is situated on the B582 between Barlston and Desford, and it's 4 miles east of Market Bosworth. The Domesday Book records it as NEWBOLD, which means new buildings. It acquired the suffix Verdon from the former lord of the manor, Nicholas de Verdon, who owned it in 1226. Nicholas's descendant, William de Ferrers, a man who we've met elsewhere, was born in NEWBOLD in the early 1330s. There are more than just a few things to discuss here, let me tell you. It has two public houses, namely the Jubilee and the Windmill, the latter of which is in Brascote, plus a working men's club that would have been frequented by the local miners. There are 3 churches, a school and loads of shops. Football is the main sport in NEWBOLD today, but at one time this would have hosted greyhound racing. It had a short-lived greyhound track, which is known to have been operating by the middle of 1930. Its exact location is unknown, but who knows, maybe we'll find it. Let's go. Let's get cracking around NEWBOLD VERDON by first checking out the southeastern end of Desford Road. Not a lot on this you might think, unless you count this little industrial estate. Now on there you can find a place called the Rat Works, which has nothing to do with any kind of furry rodents. Rather, it's everything to do with air rifles. I've linked their website below if it's any interest to you. Our next job is to wander through some of NEWBOLD's southern housing estates. A lot of this is modern 20th century housing, an expanse of residential property which has greatly expanded the population and size of the village within the last few decades. Built over a 20-year period and with some additional development since then, this area comprises the lion's share of private residential accommodation in the village. Whilst there are variations in the look and feel of the roads, avenues and closes, it's possible to make some generalisations. The estates are comprised of semi-detached and detached houses with some bungalows. The detached houses were built as 3-bedroom accommodation, but many have been extended over the years both upward and outward. Building materials and designs are conventional red brick and tile, and the houses are primarily cuboid in shape. Nothing greatly special, but it is effective. These estates, as well as infill estates to the north and a number of smaller developments, meant the village increased in size from 1,200 inhabitants just after World War II to over 3,500 by the late 1980s. It was the completion of its transformation from a mining village to one of commuter. Given this section is mostly residential, we'll use it to fill in some history of Newbold Verdon, but not before we've had a look at the local sports ground. This is Allen's Field, which is named after Allen's Way, one of the small cul-de-sacs off the much longer and windier Arnold's Crescent. This sports field lies to the southeast of the village on a gently sloping north to south alignment. It provides space for 2 football pitches and in the summer a cricket ground too, which is used by Newbold Verdon Cricket Club. In one corner there's an all-weather enclosed floodlit facility, and this has a tragic story connected to it. In 1998 a group of teenagers were killed in a road accident in early January. Their car was torn in half during a high-speed head-on collision with another vehicle. All 6 were avid sportsmen. Their family and friends raised more than £100,000 to build the floodlit facility in their memory. The pitch was officially opened by Leicester Tigers Director of Rugby Dean Richards and former Leicester City footballer Matt Elliott. On the southern perimeter of the field stand 6 oak trees and a stone monument in memory of the men too. So, something of a sombre start then to our walk around Newbold Verdon. One has to wonder what those 6 men would have made of this facility actually, considering they were all keen sportsmen. I'll tell you what, it's in absolutely pristine condition. It's definitely well looked after. Now, I can't emphasise to you just how big these playing fields are. Standing next to the facility, if you look across the cricket square and back towards the pavilion, it's quite a long way. We're going to walk back past those and into a massive residential estate next, and this is where I'm going to fill in quite a bit of Newbold Verdon's history, because there's genuinely not a lot to film in this part. So here's some more general history in chronological order. Some of this is sporadic because there's not a lot of detail, but there are some good bits in this. Records of the village go back to at least the time of Doomsday, when it was known as NEWBOLD. In 1226 it acquired its suffix thanks to the manor being owned by Nicholas de Verdon. In the itinerary of 1280, Newbold, Brascote and Barlston answered collectively as one village. It all contained 80 acres of woodland and a vineyard, and also included a small hamlet called Nainby. By 1401 the manor had passed to Walter Devereux and was later divided through marriage into 4 parts, with one of these parts going to Henry de Ferrers. In 1428 the village was quarantined due to an outbreak of cholera. This was short-lived though, as the quarantine was lifted soon after the outbreak was found to be non-serious. In 1625 Sir Thomas Crewe purchased land in Newbold, which was eventually passed down to a man called Nathaniel. He was Lord Crewe, Bishop of Durham. Other than the church, it's believed nothing remains of the village from his day. Indeed, Cobb Cottage is probably the oldest remaining house in Newbold Verdon, dating back to 1650. 6 cottages were built in 1794 for the poor of the parish with benefaction money, and they were allocated the use of 10 acres of land at the time of enclosure. Speaking of enclosure, although a part of Newbold was enclosed in 1509, the main event took place in 1810 when the church was awarded 1,316 acres of glebe land. Framework knitters were operating in the village in 1812, and by 1845 over 60 frames were in existence. By then, coal was being mined in the neighbouring villages, and many abandoned their frames and drifted into the local coal mines. Like many other villages, Newbold became almost self-sufficient, having its own tailors, blacksmith and wheelwright, as well as butchers and shoemakers. In 1930, Newbold had a short-lived greyhound racing track. The racing was independent, meaning it was never affiliated to the National Greyhound Racing Club, which is the sport's governing body. As such, it was known as a flapping track, which was the nickname given to establishments of its kind. The exact location of the track is presently unknown. Fast forward to 2015, when the funeral cortege of King Richard III passed through Market Bosworth, Newbold Verdon and Desford en route to his interment in Leicester Cathedral. So you see what I mean? Not all that exciting, just a massive housing estate. Well, now things are going to go up a notch, because now we're at the top of Jubilee Road, and this is where we're going to hit the main street. Now, Newbold Verdon's main street has loads of things on it. I've split this into two parts, simply because to do it all in one go would be ridiculous. So we're going to head through this little passageway you can see on the right hand side there, towards this row of shops, and also that building there, which is the Jubilee Inn. Jubilee Road takes its name from this pub on its junction with Main Street. Both things connect Newbold Verdon with Queen Victoria. This pub is named after her Diamond Jubilee celebrations, despite the fact it was already in existence by the end of the 19th century. It was first listed in trade directories in 1889. The Jubilee has a rather unique sign, which instead of depicting Victoria, instead shows the head and shoulders of King George VI and Queen Mary. The pub is an ever popular village local, and you can sometimes find market stalls in its car park. Heading westwards now, we come to the first batch of Newbold shops. This central area has a range of retail outlets which helps meet villagers' essential requirements. Here you can get everything from takeaway food to newspapers. As is so often the case with shop units, they chop and change a lot. Newbold has seen plenty of these stand empty for a while, and reoccupation by other businesses has often been slow. That said, this still remains a thriving village centre, and there's always something going on. The number of services and the fact that it is the main route within the village means that the centre is often very busy with pedestrians and vehicles. There are several bus stops along here for public transport services into Leicester and surrounding towns and villages. At the very western end, on a raised flower bed, a village sign has been erected on a small patch of ground adjoining Mill Lane and Main Street. And if you're wondering about that village sign, there is a little plaque on it that tells you a bit about it. It says, "This sign is presented to the village by the Garden Club, installed by the Parish Council March 2016. And on it you can see a couple of farmers, bit of greenery there, some cattle, and also the church in the top right hand corner. We'll see the church in a little while. It's got a very unique spire. Speaking of churches, let's cross the road, because the Baptist church is next. The Baptist chapel is second only to St James's Church for being the oldest religious building in the village. It was built in 1833. Non-conformity was very strong in this area. Baptists, Methodists and Jehovah's Witnesses were all catered for in Newbold Verdon. The religious census of 1829 recorded 25 Baptists meeting in the village. 4 years later, they got their chapel, built at a cost of £300. However, this had closed by the time of the 1851 religious census due to alterations that were being made to it. Unfortunately, there was no description given as to the nature of the alterations and whether they involved an expansion to the chapel building. If such an expansion did occur, it could in turn point towards a general expansion in the Baptist community. Trade directories from 1881 note that this chapel was small in size. Not far away is the Methodist chapel, which dates from 1894, but there's been a religious building on this site for a lot longer than that. Ordnance survey maps show a chapel, presumably the original primitive Methodist one, on this site previously. As far as Methodism in Newbold goes, it can be traced back to 1829 when there was a meeting house somewhere in the village. Around 25 people were using it, but it can't be said for sure if they were Wesleyans or primitives. The first primitive Methodist chapel was built in 1860, although some sources state 1850, it's not totally clear. In any event, the building was described as a domestic chapel with 100 free sittings. Let's head up Main Street again now, further westwards. Okay, now we've turned the corner and we're heading towards the old school, which is now St James's Church Hall, and also the War Memorial, which sits in its own lovely little garden. The War Memorial can be found where Main Street meets Brascote Lane in a small, pleasant little garden. It's an irregular shaped block of granite which came from a quarry at Mount Sorrel. The stone, with a couple of steps in front of it, records the names of all 28 men who died in the two World Wars. 19 served in World War I and 9 served in World War II. On the other side of Brascote Lane is one of Newbold's old schools. This was a church school that served the village between 1874 and 1910. Newbold's first school was founded thanks to a bequest from Lord Grieve, the Bishop of Durham, in 1720. In addition, Newbold also once had a private school for boys. It was founded in the 1860s by Baroness Wentworth of Kirby Mallory. In 1874, it was decided that a larger public school was needed, and so this was erected at a cost of £1,234. Again, with the ever-changing character and size of the village since, it was replaced in 1910 with the current school in Dragon Lane. This building, though, is still in use, serving instead now as St James's Church Hall. Okay, so right outside the church hall you've got a bus stop, and here we have bus times. It's the 153 which runs to Market Bosworth. I probably can't see the times from there because it's a bit too small. Now, interestingly, the name of this bus stop leads us to our next landmark. It's called the Old Swan, and that's because the Old Swan is this building. Today a private residence known as Swan House, this used to be the old White Swan pub until it was sold by Everard's in 2013, had its furniture ripped out and was renamed simply The Swan. By 2020 it was closed permanently. The building dates back to at least 1823, although I reckon it's older than that. Newbold had an array of other pubs and inns at one time. In the 19th century, aside from the Swan, there were establishments called the George and Dragon and the Sun, both of which stood on Dragon Lane. Another pub was called the Red Lion, and there was also one called the Engine, which later became a butcher's shop. At the end of the road is one of the village's key landmarks, which also provides you with a nice focal point. That's Newbold Verdon Hall, which was built in around 1680 for Nathaniel Crewe. It stands just to the north of a moated site, which surrounded an earlier manor house. Today, that site is now a scheduled ancient monument. Originally a country manor, the hall is used as a farmhouse these days. Fronting the hall is a long axial cobbled forecourt, defined by 3 of an original 4 pavilions, one in each corner of the court. Next door is the church. Now, next door to that house we have this. This is the church here in Newbold Verdon. It's got a very distinctive type of spire. It's known as a Sussex spire. Well, we were in Sussex not so long ago, and I don't recall seeing anything quite like this. It's not just the spire that's of note here, though. There's lots more to talk about with this church, so let's check it out. Dedicated to St James, this dates back to 1209, although it's been much restored since then. It consists of a tower, a nave, a chancel and a south porch. The base of the tower dates to the Norman period, and an ancient font, which is no longer used, still remains inside the church. In 1886 it was replaced by a marble basin on a wooden support. The church has 2 bells, and one is inscribed "God Save this Church 1663. The other reads, "The Church's Praise, we sound always 1754. The tower has a Sussex spire which was designed by L.D.G. Ogden of Hinckley in 1960. It's considered very unusual as its walls are covered on the exterior with large shingle. St James's also possesses two sundials, one on the outer south wall and the other on the vestry floor in the tower. On the west wall is the royal coat of arms of George III, which has been carefully restored. The whole building was virtually rebuilt in 1899 at a cost of £2,786. Like the naming of the pub, this was done to celebrate the Diamond Jubilee of Queen Victoria. Until 1860, music here was provided by stringed instruments, but in that year a harmonium was purchased at a cost of £30. In 1911, an organ, which had been built in 1865, was acquired from Thornton Church and was installed in time for the Harvest Festival. The present organ was obtained during World War II. Next, it's Dragon Lane. This is one of the oldest routes into and out of the village. The lane is fairly flat except at the very northern tip, where it dips down due to some mid-20th century mining subsidence. It's largely residential, however there are also some other land uses. Near the southern end, there's an old people's home and a small commercial complex set back from the road. Also on the western side, further up, is the primary school, and opposite that is Dragon Lane Recreation Ground. The school, as we know already, was built in 1910. It has one class per cohort as well as a special unit for children on the autism spectrum. It has a sensory garden, a pond and a forest school too. When first built, NEWBOLD VERDON Primary could accommodate 140 children. The arrangement was that all village infants would attend the council school and the older children would continue to attend the church school, which is now St James's Church Hall. From 1930 this arrangement changed, perhaps because the church school could not meet new building regulations. That resulted in this being enlarged in order to take in all children under the age of 11. It's since been enlarged many more times during the 20th century. Now, you talk about ideally placed. When the kids come out of school every day, they have this park to have a go in. There's quite a lot of play equipment in there, big green open space. Let's have a quick look at it before we continue up Dragon Lane. Dragon Lane Recreation Ground was the original sports field for the village before Allen's Way came along. This is a lot smaller and is roughly rectangular in shape. No organised sports take place on the ground today. Instead, it's used mainly as a space for exercising dogs and taking walks. During the year though, village events are often held on the grounds. The western part has a substantial play area for children, and this is very popular throughout most of the year, especially in the drier months. Its location opposite the school means it's often used at school leaving time. Older children and teenagers also use the space to socialise and play football. A secondary but very important use of the park is for people wishing to access different parts of the village. There are 4 points of pedestrian access to the grounds, creating a variety of routes to and from different parts of NEWBOLD VERDON. Now, my original route around the village was supposed to cross the field, but that was before I learned about the top of Dragon Lane. This is the NEWBOLD VERDON medical practice off St George's Close. It works in partnership with a sister surgery in Market Bosworth. The practice is a 6-partner operation and serves approximately 11,000 patients from villages across the area that we've been covering all week. Opposite the surgery, on the main Desford Road by the way, is the entrance to NEWBOLD VERDON Equestrian Centre. Okay, more residential areas for you now. We've got 2 little estates, one called Preston Drive, the other one called Sparkenhoe, which we need to explore yet. And kind of in the middle of both of those, we've got the other bit of Main Street. So yeah, a bit of a mixed bag between here and the end. And the end is still quite a long way away yet. In some ways, NEWBOLD Verdon's northern reaches are just as residential as the southern ones. Our next job is to explore the Preston Drive and Sparkenhoe areas, which are a bit older than the likes of Arnold's Crescent. Both estates lie north of Main Street on flat land. Sparkenhoe is the smaller estate with about 60 houses, comprising mainly semi-detached, terraced rows and bungalows. Preston Drive, where we are now, has a similar build type, but with about 200 properties instead, including a substantial number of masonettes. The estates were built in the late 1950s and early 1960s and were dominated by council housing. A lot of them have now been purchased by their owners, but there are still some clusters of social housing within these streets. Building designs are conventional, mainly brick with some rendering. Most are set well back from the road. There's just the one commercial establishment within these streets, and that's the Lotus House Chinese Takeaway on the corner of Statham Street and Cadle Street. Now we're at the top of Mill Lane, where we find a former Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. Planning records do not reveal when the property was first established as a Jehovah's Witness meeting hall, but its history dates back at least several decades. Permission was given to the society to extend and alter the building in 1991. The hall closed in 2019 and was then sold by the church, which has since found a new home in the area. Since then, the hall has been turned into a physiotherapy and Pilates practice. Every time I find a Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses, I always think of this joke. A guy sat at home minding his own business when a couple of Jehovah's Witnesses knock on his door. So he gets up, goes to the door, answers the door, and he lets them in and says, you know, come in for a cup of tea and all that kind of stuff. Sit down, make yourself at home, and let's talk. And they sat there for about 5 or 10 minutes and nothing's happened. And the guy says to them, well, what do you want to talk about? And the Jehovah's replies, well, we don't know. We've never made it this far before. Next up, we have to walk down Hornbeam Road, which will take us back to the village centre. This is a wide and open street, but the lack of hedges and trees makes for a less green prospect than some other areas of the village. We're back on Main Street, and this time we're going to be heading eastwards. The row of shops before you has seen a raft of changes in recent times. Today, this row consists of a one-stop supermarket, a bakery called Bella and Bear, and the greedy fish Chippy. The Chippy has been known within the last 15 years as Newbold Fishery and Chris's Fish and Chips. I'll leave it up to you Newbolders to determine which incarnation was best, but it's been a Chippy for years. Bella and Bear has been a few different things in the same time. Before being a bakery, it was a hair salon and a coffee lounge called Aroma, as well as a cafe called the Fisherman's Cottage. As for the One Stop, well, that used to be a Nisa, and barring a few changes to its exterior outlook, it's always been a shop. It's not the only one Newbold has on this stretch of Main Street, though. In 1929, the Colville Cooperative Society extended their business to Newbold Verdon by opening a co-op store in the village. That self-same store is still here today, although it looks a bit different now owing to a huge £38,000 makeover in 2021. It received a raft of updates to give it a fresher, lighter feel. Its revamp also included the addition of several new product lines to boost its offering to the local community. The makeover came as a result of the store's colleagues working around the clock to ensure vulnerable people in both Newbold and beyond continued to have access to food and essentials throughout the COVID pandemic. Yeah, I've been walking around so much this morning, I don't even know whether I've done the parish notice board yet or not. I don't think I have. So we'll leave a card on this one outside the co-op. This one says, what's going on around Newbold Verdon? Well, I'll tell you what's going on around Newbold Verdon today. I'm here. So let's leave a card so that people know I've been. There we go. Job done. Directly over the road is the entrance to United Footwear, which is also known as Stathams Shoe Warehouse. Originally, this building was the location of the Newbold Verdon Sports and Social Club in the 1930s, before that moved across the road to its present position. United Footwear was owned by Blunt's, the iconic footwear shop that many travellers see first when they arrive in Leicester by train. They won't now, though. In March this year, it was announced it would be closing after some 40 years in business in Leicester city centre. That followed a decision by the head office in Kidderminster stating they felt the shop was no longer financially viable. The shop got perhaps its most notorious moment in 2023 when singer James Blunt, who is in no way related to the business in any way, posed for a picture during a visit. He was in the city to perform at BBC Radio 2 in the park. I wonder, has he ever been to Newbold Verdon? Who knows? The Sports and Social Club is one of the last remaining local links to the former mining activity in the area. In both the old and the new version, miners would spend quite a lot of time when they weren't down the pit. It soon established itself as a central gathering place for the whole village and not just for miners. The club has evolved over time, but its core function of providing a social hub for the community has remained constant. It still continues to provide a space for socialising, entertainment and local events. This is the library, which, like the social club, is often utilised by people living in adjoining villages. Run entirely by volunteers, the library offers a multitude of activities such as film nights, theatrical productions, musical evenings and children's events. There is limited parking on the library grounds, and this can cause cars to be parked on the narrow road leading into the residential area of Sparkenhoe, on the edge of which the building stands. So I have no idea what this thing is supposed to represent, but there are some interesting pictures on this, some old pictures. There's one there, look, of the Chippy, how it used to be. And then there's one of the Jubilee, which looks almost the same. It is slightly different now. And then there's another one which I spotted somewhere down here of that thatched house, which is next door to the one-stop these days. So yeah, I've no idea what this thing is really, but it's quite interesting, I'll say that much. Awesome stuff. Now this isn't the only thing that's in the grounds of the library, because if we come across the car park here, you'll see something else which caught my eye, which is the only reason I caught that structure, whatever it is, because I saw this, and this seems to be a load of tiles which have been probably made by the local children, I'd say. Oh, there's something here in this corner. Here we are. This is the NEWBOLD VERDON I 2010, created by the children and the community with the help of artist Philip Hardaker. Okay, so let's go from here and we'll go all the way around. So we'll start with the sun there, see what you can spot. Obviously some of the children's names are on these. If you recognise your name, then let me know in the comments below, because I'd imagine if this was 2010, that's 15 years ago, so quite a lot of these will be adults now, you'd have thought. Really good though, really, really good. Let's get to the end. Come this far, let's get to the end. Around we go. Library is cool, indeed. It is with this thing in its car park. I feel like I'm going too fast, to be honest. But that's it, we're at the end now. To the future of NEWBOLD VERDON. Yep, long may it be good. All that remains now is to wander through the rest of the Sparkenhoe estate. The word Sparkenhoe appears a lot in certain areas of Leicestershire. It's got a couple of meanings. Here in Newbold it likely meant gorsy knob. That translates into modern English as a hill covered in gorse or brushwood, not what some of you might have been thinking. It also refers to a historic administrative area called the Sparkenhoe 100, which covered a region in southwestern Leicestershire. Okay, we've made it all the way around NEWBOLD VERDON. It took me just under 2 hours to do all that lot. It is a big village, this. We haven't quite finished with it yet though, because even though we've walked around the main village and seen practically everything, there are still 2 other little areas which fall within the parish boundaries. There's a little hamlet called Brascote, and there's another tiny hamlet called Newbold Heath. Let's get in the car and drive through those to finish. This is the tiny hamlet of Brascote, which sits to the south of NEWBOLD VERDON. It only really has one landmark of note, but the Windmill Inn, seen here, can tell us a bit more about life around here before coal. NEWBOLD VERDON had no problem when it came to baking. Bakers who operated in the village could easily obtain flour because there were 3 windmills in the area. There was one on Mill Lane and another on Desford Road in Newbold itself. Brascote sported the third. Having moved from Syston in 1812, it was erected here on a new site close to what is now the Windmill Inn, hence the name of the pub. And finally, we have a short drive through the hamlet of Newbold Heath, a small community to the north of the main village on the road to Merry Lees. That's been Newbold Verdon, and with it, our first run in Hinckley and Bosworth is over. I'll be back very soon, but look out for more episodes in the county this weekend as we cross the border northwards back into the northwest Leicestershire district. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.